Good afternoon and welcome to this regular council meeting on Monday, June 3rd, 2024. We will call the meeting to order at 1 p.m. We'll begin the meeting with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Kapamonaghan is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory in the traditional territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to First Nations for their care for and teachings about these lands. May we honor these teachings. With that, I'll look for approval of the agenda to council today. Councillor Byrne and Councillor Natchoff, all in favor? That is approved. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, there is no closed session. We have minutes of the regular meeting held May 21st, 2024. Look for a mover to approve those minutes as presented. Councillor Byrne and Councillor Natchoff, all in favor? That is approved. Minutes from the committees and boards. We have the Kapamonaghan Public Library Board minutes of April 16th, 2024 minutes. Can I look to for a motion to receive those for information? Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councillor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. With that, we move on to the first report before us today on the agenda, and that is Report Finance 2024-06, Tax Levy, Special Services Levy, and BIA bylaws. Ms. Pope.
Thank you. Through the chair to council, I have before you the tax levy and special levy BIA bylaws for the tax rates. This is built upon the final budget approval of February 20th, 2024, with a municipal increase of 3.37%. We've now received education, which has not changed since last year, and then the county rate as well. So these are the final bylaws in order to submit our information and bylaws so that we can print the final tax bills at the end of this month for distribution the first week of July.
Thank you, Ms. Pope. Any questions with regards to that report? Councillor Byrne.
Through the chair to Ms. Pope, there was a couple of things of interest to me. When it talks about special service, is that referring to the wastewater in Millbrook, or would that regard to the BIA designation for the improvements?
So it's not water, wastewater. Water, wastewater is never combined with taxes. They're completely separate. However, there is the improvements with regards to the BIA for the area and that levy. And then there's also the environmental levy as well, which is separate because we have two levies. We have a general and a environmental levy as well.
Through the chair, yes. And on that environmental levy, it comes up with a final reduction at 0.7%. That's for all the classes, all the ratio.
Correct. We used to have it by ward, but it is generalized across the total municipality.
Another question, Councillor Byrne?
On page 18 there, when it's talking about the different categories, it still has a recycling for the county. I thought the province brought in that circular materials bureaucracy to eliminate the county being involved. I was just wondering why that's still on the spreadsheet.
So that requires our Diamond new software that we have to now consolidate and pull those pieces together. So we have balance to the county, but because our program is built with those components, we have to have them merge it. So just in this 1 year, it's there, but next year you'll see it merged. It's actually not splitting it out. It's just taking the total amount across. Because when you print a tax bill, you only see one county rate. This is in the background for us as we do our uploads to Diamond.
Thank you, Ms. Pope. Other questions, members of council? Seeing none, the direction or recommendation in the report is that council receives for information and approves the tax rate levy, special services levy, and BIA levy bylaws, including schedules as per the Municipal Act 2001. If no other questions, look for a mover and a seconder for that motion. Councillor Byrne and Councillor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. Thank you, Ms. Pope. Moving on to 8.2, which is report building bylaw. Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the rest of council. The recommendation for the report before you is the building bylaw number 2024-33, being a bylaw to provide for the administration enforcement of the Building Code Act 1992 within the Township of Kapamonaghan be approved. Just brought this forward basically to add in some septic stuff, a little bit of cloud permit wording, and just some general cleanup. Other than that, if there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Questions, members of council? Councillor Byrne.
Through the chair to Kyle, I'm just curious when I'm looking through this. So the overall idea of these bylaws is just to recoup the costs of doing whatever we're doing for the community, not to generate other income for anything else. But can you tell me in this whole schedule, if there's been any significant changes as for the average person, if they were going to get a septic system put in 5 years ago, as it will be a year forward, how big a variation there would be between those costs now that we're looking after the septic portion of the bylaws?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Burns. So the building bylaw doesn't have the user fees in it. That's in our regular user fee part. This just spells out all the things in the Building Code Act that aren't within the code. Pretty much how we administer our building permits. As for the cost, though, we've kept them the exact same from payroll public health. So we've just maintained what their fees are so that everybody who's used those fees, generally the contractors providing the service who are doing the installs, they'll stay the exact same so that when they're quoting customers, they know exactly what the fees are. So not sure, I can't go back as they were the ones who put in the fees before, but they still are the same as last year, which was the same as the previous year. So last 3 years, the same cost.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Any other questions, council? If not, the recommendation in the report is that the building bylaw number 2024-33 being a bylaw to provide for the administration and enforcement of the Building Code Act 1992 within the township of Cavan-Monaghan be approved. Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councilor Byrne. All in favor? That is approved. Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Next is 8.3, Public Works Proposed Property Disposition, Municipal Property adjoining the Fire Hall Station. Mr. Hancock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council, the recommendation before you is that council consider the options for the remaining township lands adjacent to the fire station fronting on Highlands Boulevard and provide staff direction. And just as a bit of introduction to this report, we have included with the report 3 options from staff. These are not, of course, all the options that can be considered, but they are 3. The first option was to look at 3 single detached residential lots. That is shown on attachment number, number 3. Attachment number 1 was the draft reference plan for the property. And attachment number 2 was our site plan showing the fire station and the adjoining property. So option number 1 was for 3 single family detached lots. That's in keeping with what Tower Hill is building in the area. And you'll see that on their draft plan, which is also an attachment. Option number 2 provides for 5 townhouse lots. That was to look at a variation from the single family units and to allow for more density, and that can be accommodated. Option number 3 was a commercial institutional building. We cited it on the property. It is a confined piece of property in that we have limited frontage, but it can accommodate some form of a commercial institutional building with limited parking. So that's on option number 3 and is shown as one of the attachments. Staff reviewed this. I mean, we have looked at it and said it's up to council to determine what you want to do with the property. It is surplus lands. We've also attached the bylaw that discusses how to dispose of township lands if you wish to sell it. And there is a process to be followed. With this, there is Karen Ellis is here, our director of planning, and there is a planning process if we decide to go to any other uses that are not institutional, because it is zoned institutional at the present time. So if you're looking at commercial residential, there is a planning process that she can comment on more directly. So she's here to also talk to that issue. We only looked at it as a possibility. Is surplus land can be left as green space. It's really up to council how you wish to look at it. We were at one point looking at the 3 single family lots because it was in keeping with the Tower Hill draft plan and in keeping with the streetscape. But regardless, it is before council for your discussion and direction to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Hancock. So just a question just before council, I turn it over to council with regards to other questions. Really what we're looking like with I appreciate the different, I think the three options help present sort of the size and scope of the property. It's not lavish and it's kind of, I think three single lots would be, a significant amount of developing the entire property because of the limitations, like you mentioned, for commercial with regards to the parking. So, but what we're really talking about is we're going to retain the lands from for some other purpose, as you mentioned. I think it could be parkland, it could be some other amenity, even though it is small, or we're really looking for staff to divest of it. Like there's really kind of two avenues that we're going to go, keep it and use it for some other purpose, or divest it and let whomever develop it for whatever purpose they may seem fit. I guess the question for that option, should council be interested, is are we going to do any of the planning component to make it any of the three options or some other option presented? Is that a fair summation? Maybe Ms. Ellis would like to speak to that.
To you, Mayor Graham, members of council. As the Director of Public Works indicated, you will need a planning approval for many of the options. Right now, it is designated and zoned institutional. That does permit a very limited scope of residential in terms of retirement home, long-term care. But the amount of property we're talking about today doesn't really lend itself to those uses. So you will be into an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment. And if you're going with a commercial direction, you would also be required to have site plan approval. Those planning approvals can be done in-house. It should be fairly straightforward. We do have an approved draft plan approved subdivision. We have a site plan approved fire hall development on either side. It is a municipal property. So in terms of the technical information, the background supporting information, it shouldn't be overly complicated. And I would think it would be in everybody's best interest if you do want to divest, that at least we need to have an idea of what kind of use you're looking at, and I would suggest we at least do an official plan amendment to set the policy direction for what you want to go forward. And then if you do want to sell or give, whatever, the zoning can be determined at that time based on what a proposed use is, and regulations can then be tailored to that use.
So I guess and we're preempting the conversation. I don't mean to do that. I'm just trying to get sort of understood as to what we're going to build with regards to a recommendation, because we don't have a pre-established sort of framework for that with regards to the options. It's just what is council's wish. So let's get to that discussion now. Any questions, members of council? Deputy Mayor Huntley.
Through you, Chair, I guess to understand it, maybe a little clearer for me anyway, is we have the option of either keeping it or getting rid of it. And if we get rid of it, the question is, do we change the zoning on it before we get rid of it? Is that kind of where I'm thinking? Because I look at the options and like we can't control if we get rid of it, we can't control what gets built on it. Like once you've divested it, it's up to whoever they want to build townhouses or houses, it's up to them. The only question would be if they want it rezoned. And then the question is, do we want to rezone it before we get rid of it or not? So help me clarify the order of operations here.
I think, Mr. Mayor, through yourself to Deputy Mayor, I think there's a couple of different issues. One, if you want single family dwellings, then the township has the ability to take it through official plan and zoning process. And we can do the lots to set it up so it's in line with Tower Hill. And you can divest it after that, which may lead to more monetary value. If you sell it as a block, it can come back, and whoever the buyer is can look at his options and he can discuss that. But I think the monetary value will come with you setting what you want on the property. And I lead to the 3 single family, but whatever the option is, I think you're best. We have the ability to create lots without going through land division. We can do that at the local level. So there is some advantages, and we can take it through the planning process. But it's really up to council whether you want to be involved, you want to set the tone of the development, or whether you want to divest and let a developer look at it and say, what can I do with this?
So again, I guess the only consideration that really has an impact on the divestiture is whether you're including an OPA to whatever effect for whatever purpose in the motion and the recommendation from from this council, right? Because you're not selling, or you could, I guess, excuse not do it at all and just sell it as is, but it would be zoned institutional, which would have limitations on the actual valuation of the property. So I think I don't want to speak for staff, but I think there's a clarity with, if you do an OPA to establish the 3 lots, there's a sort of simplicity as to, well, this is what we can foresee as the cost or the value of the divestiture and whichever way you choose to divest it in. But you don't, other than institutional, that there's impacts on the value of that size of land because of that zoning. Ms. Hurley?
Thank you, through you, Mayor to Council. Just for clarification, the report is written to you or in front of you today as the option to divest, or that's how it's written. So really the question is that you're asking this. The question that we're asking you is, if you wish to divest the property, then we have to declare the property surplus. Staff will then take a report to you after determining what your options are for selling. Okay, so you first we had to bring this report to you. Just want a clarification. We have to bring this report because we need a resolution from council that you declare it surplus. Then we would come back at a report and tell you, here's your options. If we want to declare it surplus, then here's what the cost would be. If you want to change your zoning, or if you want to put those places in place, we would do that after the fact. The question is whether today the report's written that staff wrote it in the aspect of divesting, but it doesn't mean that if you wish to hold on to it, you can do that too. But it's just declaring it surplus today, but there'll be a few reports that will come back to you on how best to do that and what your best options are for that at that time.
Thank you, Ms. Hurley. Councilor Byrne?
Through the chair, I have several questions, but I'd like to start off with understanding who is the housing agency that this might get donated to if it's one of the options.
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Councillor Byrne, Habitat for Humanity would be one agency that could benefit from donation of a piece of property.
So that being said, through the chair, I'm under the impression that the surveying's already been done for 3 lots on this piece of land, and there's already 3 stubs off of the road that isn't finished yet to service this particular area, which would make me think that this has been thought out before. But my big worry right now is, and I was hoping Bill Belford might be here, I thought I was told at some point in the last 2 years that the brand new fire hall was going to have a training center meeting room or something that would handle quite a few people. When I look at the schematic, it's hard to tell. It's not to scale, but we have what I count out as 34 parking spaces on this property. We have more than 60 volunteers in the entire township that we pay to equip. If this fire hall was supposed to be some kind of training facility, I don't understand. It looks like the parking lot is going to be pretty, doesn't look really functional. And I'm worried that it hasn't been a lot of thought put into it, something similar to the hockey rink just south of us for clearing snow out of it come winter time here in Canada. So I'm just wondering, is this really surplus land, or is this land we should be making better use of it?
So I can fill in some of those gaps. So there is a meeting facility in the fire hall that has a room that can hold, I think it's upwards of 100 seated, if I'm not mistaken. But the intention is to utilize, that training wouldn't be occurring in the winter. When we utilize the CMCC community hall room to do that, so that there's parking there. And there's successful or no issues with that amount of, we're not having like the Norwood Fire Academy installation coming out. Like, that facility exists for that training purposes and those sorts of purposes of grandeur. This is more sort of maybe some co-training or regional training with a few maybe chiefs from the neighboring municipalities to come over and have a conversation with their, senior staff, but it's not an educational facility. It's simply more for meetings for as you mentioned, for all of our fire service to be able to meet on site. And the parking, there's not parking for that everyday usage, but there's plenty of additional parking at the CMCC or at the township office as well as the intention. So, but to your point, if you believe, or someone were to be of the belief that you wanted more paved parking for fire service, then that would be a reason to not divest of the land. But the chief has not had any conversation or has expressed any interest or concerns about the parking, and he's the leader of the design of the entire project. So, you know, I think it's unfortunate that Chief Belver is not here, but we can definitely have that conversation at a later date. And, you know, like I said, for us right now, all we're really considering is to explore considering it surplus land or not, because that's the next step in the process for considering the purpose. Unless you'd like to, you know, like I said, you can retain it for a myriad of purposes. But, you know, there's clearly a value and there's clearly a lot of restrictions on the potential vitality or validity of the project for a number of things. So what it is, that's one of the reasons you could retain it, but that's not in the, it hasn't been reflected or identified as a need or any sort of concern for the fire hall development as such. Deputy Mayor Huntley?
Through you, Chair, I guess I'm struggling with a decision today not having the chief here to comment, because to me, it could quite well be a little bit of outdoor space for the volunteer fire department. There could be many different things, you know. And why we were presented with options, I'm not really sure. Like, if the first question is, do we want to divest it or not? You know, then the options come into play. But right now, I'm not sure we want to divest it, because without the chief here to say whether it's of use to him or not. Unless you want to go summon the chief.
Ms. Hurley?
Through you, Mayor, to council, just for clarification, management staff have talked about this for possibly 2 years now, about the potential of these lots. So all the managers, including the chief, was very much involved in the discussion. So as I mentioned before, this report was written as to divest. If council wishes not to, that is a council decision, but the chief has been involved in these discussions.
Councilor Nacho?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just 3 short, quick questions. One, just because this is done in meters, could somebody just give me a ballpark idea of what the size of the commercial unit is that we're looking at with the parking, both the size of what the building would be and what the building with the parking would be? Second question, I know that it was mentioned seniors facility, potentially as institutional. Just for clarification purposes, do daycares fall under institutional, or is that would strictly be commercial? And the third question is there no other commercial development earmarked for this development, or the one that will be going in across the street on the west side? Is every single thing that's earmarked for this master plan just strictly residential? Because if that be the case, then it may behoove us to, we retain the land, build a commercial unit, and maybe the township looks at, we own a daycare and we collect rent, and there's like other alternatives. But if someone could answer those 3 questions, thank you.
Ms. Hurley?
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Natchoff. First of all, on the lot area was, had a depth of 29.7 meters approximately. That's rounded off 30 meters, 100 feet depth is what we're working with. It was 41.82 meters on the frontage, which is about 125 feet in Imperial. And you're asking about the building area. The building area that we had allowed for on option 3 was 400, commercial institutional floor area of 410 square meters. Ends up being about, I'll just do a quick calculation. About 1,200 square feet, yeah. That's it. So first of all, that's the 2 questions. I think I'll defer to Karen on the issue of the daycare.
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Councillor Natchoff and other council members. So a daycare is a permitted use in the institutional exception 1 zone. It is permitted. So if you decided to keep the property and lease it, rent it, whatever, a daycare can occur within the existing official plan designation and the existing zone. There are obviously regulations associated with the daycare use in terms of setbacks, parking requirements, and then there's the Daycare Act or whatever terminology there is, and that dictates how much outdoor play space you need, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And the last question was the issue of Tower Hill North. It is, again, it was set up for single family and townhouses. It's strictly residential development. The commercial you speak about has been proposed on the east side of County Road 10, and that is where the major commercial. So there is no commercial plan for the Tower Hill North subdivision internally to it.
Thank you, Mayor Graham. Just, I believe that there is a small amount of commercial permitted in the 3 apartment blocks at the south end of Tower Hill. Like accessory commercial, like a hairdressing kind of thing.
No. Ms. Hurley?
Through you, Mayor, to council, just to clarify, it's the potential of the high density units to have commercial. I just wanted to go back, if I may, just a couple items. One, the survey is of the entire 3 lots. Carly, would you mind putting that up? So the survey is of the total lot. What you have in front of you are concept plans. These were done in-house just to show you concepts of what could possibly be on those lands. And I just want to clarify, they've been surveyed, each of them. It's just the one parcel of land, but the concepts are just what you see. And again, the Public Works Department just did that up just so you could see potentially. There is no given size of like this, the commercial piece, for example. It was just, I believe, and you know, the director can sort of clarify, Mr. Hancock, on that, but he just showed you what a concept would look like. With regards to the stubbing, there's, again, Mr. Hancock can touch base on the stubbing, but the stubbing had to be done at the same time the infrastructure was going in. It can't be done at a later time because the road for Highlands was going in. So we stubbed it to the maximum use you could possibly use. Doesn't mean you have to have 3. You could go down to 1, but the intent was to do it at the same time because therefore the cost savings was much better to do it then when they're putting the road in than to do it later or to tear it up. Just wanted to clarify those items.
Thank you, Ms. Hurley. Questions? Councilor Byrne?
Through the chair, on that diagram you have up overhead, just below the 3 prospective lots, it's marked concession. It kind of looks like a runway or a low ground. What is that actually referring to, that area that's kind of sectioned off on kind of a valley around the entranceway into the fire hall?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Byrne, first of all, we have allowed for grading because there is, I mean, you have to understand the fire hall. So there is grading, sloping shown, and just to the left-hand side of the 3 lots, there's a drainage ditch that runs to a catch basin to take the runoff from our back hillside to the storm system on Highlands. So this is just it's just accommodating some of the grading and drainage in the area. That was the intent. It's fairly conceptual. It's based on the 3 lots. Miss Hurley did mention that the reference plan is a draft reference plan, so it can be converted to whatever you want. It was only created to give us something to work with. So it's not registered, so therefore it has no status.
Thank you, Mr. Hancock. Questions, members of council? Councilor Byrne?
Through the chair, I can appreciate the staff's had a couple of years to look at this and think about it. I got the paperwork 4 days ago. I'm trying to realize, once you give away property, it gets very expensive to get back. I don't really see this as surplus so much. And I'm worried that we make a decision here today without some more questions being answered. I'd appreciate it if we could get that.
So with regard, just on that vein, I mean, we can always defer the report. I mean, we can defer that report to a future meeting when Chief Belfour is here. It can answer that portion of the question. If the lands or were the lands to be determined to be surplus, there's a significant amount of time that would elapse between now and then before that report would come before council, and it doesn't pre-commit council to the divestiture, does it not? Ms. Hurley?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, are you asking if you go ahead and declare it surplus? Then what the use is can be discussed, but you would be declaring it surplus. So we would be selling or divesting that property. But we're more than welcome to come back to council another date if you'd like further time. That's fine too.
No, I have no problems with deferring the report. I mean, it's not going anywhere and it's not losing value. But it's good to have a sort of a preview and an understanding of the size and scope and potential opportunities there. But it seems as though that might be where we're headed. Deputy Mayor Huntley, and then I'll go to Councillor Edgerton.
Through you, Chair, I guess in this declaring it surplus concept, is it possible that, once we've declared it, if we declare it surplus, you bring us back some options to look at, and none of the options are appealing, can we unsurplus it? Can we undo? And I think that was kind of your question, right? Or can we find out what these options are, what's really going on, and then declare it surplus? Like, I think, it just seems like we got a cart before the horse here.
Ms. Hurley?
If you need more time, I would not declare it surplus. I would state that we can come back and give you more information, what you're looking for. We're looking for your direction today. So if you can make that clear for us at a staff level, we're happy to come back with more information for you on what those options might look like.
Yeah, so I guess with the direction to defer, we should, if there are specificities that we're looking for further information on, I mean, the chief can provide sort of his context. I think that's a given. We've established that conversation. Is there other details that we're looking for? Oh, sorry, I forgot to come to you, Councillor Edgerton. I will in just a second. You'll come next. But is there we should make sure that with that direction to defer the report, that we also clarify to staff specific pieces that we're looking for further information on. Councillor Edgerton, apologies for that.
To you, Mr. Mayor, I think rather than staff wasting a whole bunch of time and energy and writing reports on this, I don't think we should be declaring this as vacant or surplus property at all. Just keep it the way it is.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Edgerton. Deputy Mayor Huntley.
Through you, Chair, I guess if we were to declare it surplus, I think the options that I would like to see with it are more, the value of that property when it gets assessed. Like, is it a better, do we get more money for it if it's into 3 chunks, 1 chunk, commercial chunk, institutional chunk? Like, to me, this is a dollar and cents decision to declare this surplus. And if we're going to declare it, we might as well get the best bang out of the buck for it.
So on that point, maybe to Ms. Hurley, with that, I mean, traditionally when a land is declared surplus, one of the next components of the future report is evaluation. But maybe what we could seek in the meantime is sort of an informal, sort of real estate, maybe having conversations with one of the various realtors that we have relationships with to sort of give us a loose explanation or a loose valuation, not binding obviously, as to what an institutional lot, a commercial lot, or a residential lot could potentially be worth in that deferral. Is that clear enough from a direction standpoint, Ms. Hurley?
Through you, Mayor to Council. So you're looking for basically more of a costing option and what those options would be if you did divest it. Okay. And those items, depending upon what that would be, obviously, if we were going to do that, some of those discussions would be happening in a closed session. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so is that direction clear and everyone's okay? If not, we're looking for a mover and a seconder to defer the report and come back at a later date with a bit more information. Is that clear, Ms. Clerk?
To you, Mr. Mayor. It is, I think, as long as Ms. Hurley's clear with the direction. I think the only thing I just wanted to see clarification on from the deputy mayor was, do you want to know what the higher level of those assessments would be when they come back? Is it a higher assessment if we sell it as residential? Is it a higher assessment back for us when we sell it as commercial? Is that what you were looking for?
My suggestion would be a range, like an estimated range that could encompass that, just to make it simple. Is that fair? Or Deputy Mayor Huntley?
That's absolutely fair through you, Mayor. I guess the only other piece of this is, Is there a sense of urgency here? Like, do we have a window that we have to make this decision in? And if so, then, we should come back sooner rather than later. That's all.
As member staff, Mr. Hancock, maybe want to speak to that?
Mr. Mayor, to you, to council, I'm not sure there's no window, there's no time frame as I see it on this. I mean, we are certainly planning, the subdivider is planning to go ahead with utility installation. He's planning, of course, to pave gravel and pave the roads, and that's to happen over the next, but that will not have an implication. We've already stubbed the property, so we're good that way. So that I don't see it as being anything of a time sensitive matter. I think we need to understand what we need to do and what you want. So whatever we can provide.
Thank you for that, Mr. Hancock. Councilor Byrne?
Through the chair, on that note, is there any idea, guess, when Highland will actually have its first lift of asphalt on it?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Byrne, the schedule right now is for granular, what they call granular materials to start in this month. We've asked them to pave starting at County Road 10 by the fire hall on Highlands with what's referred to as base curb and base asphalt. That is to be completed through July and August, and the schedule from the subdivider indicates that we'll have base asphalt by September. Now, we have to recognize there are utilities to go in, there's more work to happen, but that is, right now, it's September scheduled to complete base asphalt.
So I would expect that there'd be no issues with this coming back in a meeting in August. Is that fair to say? I mean, we only have the one meeting left this month, but if not that, then the first meeting there's 2 meetings in August. So I would assume by August we could have that, and then that September deadline wouldn't be an issue. Is that, everyone's okay with that? Very good. If not, we'll look. So that's the motion then, to defer the report. We'll come back at a later date with information as directed. Moved by Councillor Natchez, seconded by Councillor Byrne. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none. All in favor? That is approved. Good discussion. Thanks very much, all council and staff as well. Next is report 8.4, CAO, Development of Corporate Strategic Plan, Ms. Hurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to council and members of the public. The report in front of you is, the recommendation is that council award the corporate strategic plan to Town Hall Consulting, Inc. for $23,557 plus HST at $3,062.41 for a total bid of $26,619.41. Very exciting.
Thank you. Nice to see a diversity, but also a significant diversity of costs in the quote, but nice to see the amount. I don't know if I've ever seen a tender with this many applications, albeit one of them at least significantly more than the other. Questions, members of council? Councillor Byrne.
Through the chair to Ms. Hurley, I'm looking at this, trying to figure out, and I'm not sure what the big spread was caused by. We talked about this earlier. But when I look at your scaling for these different applicants, the margin between Town Hall and Quarry was 0.15. I don't know what that even means in real life. But I was also taken back by the fact that the company BDO, which is huge, scored so poorly. So I would like to know more about the scaling process. I know you got a little outline here, but the spread between those 2 low bids was so close. I just wondered what the determining factors were.
Ms. Hurley.
Through you, council. So we don't get into the details of exactly what the scores are for the individual. We average everything out as a score, being respectful for the proponents that did submit. But what I can tell you is we take a look at what is being proposed, from everything from their schedule to the way they wrote the report, the understanding that they have in the proposal, the timeline set, the communications plans, reaching out to the public process. So those are all weighted and scored. And therefore, at the end of the day, we average everything out. So then everything is treated fairly. So BDO, obviously, this is an RFP. You can look right from the very beginning. We knew that the budget for this going in was 26,000. They came out extremely high compared to the others. And between Town Hall and the Quarry, we also check references. And we also go into the references on timelines and schedules, additional costs, et cetera, to see what they've done in the past and how successful each of them are. And the committee, again, scores them and does an average. And at the end of the day, the average came out from Town Hall Consulting, and we did check references with them as well, and we're very pleased to be able to provide that in front of you today.
Thank you, Ms. Hurley. Counselor Natchez.
Thank you, Chair, through you. So just to clarify then, the decision to go with Town Hall Consulting was for the fact that they came out with just a minusculely higher average score, even though like we're more or less comparing apples to apples on the cost of the RFP quote itself. So was the score itself the determining factor for staff?
So through you, Mayor, to council. So when you do an RFP, it's not just always about the cost, and that's why it's averaged out. It's an RFP is basically about, do they understand the project? Maybe it had further consultation with the public. A lot of them set what their proposal is going to be at, and it's also how they write the proposal, as well as very much the referencing. We do check to ensure that things are, schedules are met and budgets are coming in on time. They were both very, very close, but I would definitely support Town Hall Consulting over the quarry.
Oh, very good. Any other questions with regards to this? If not, we can take a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that council award the corporate strategic plan to Town Hall Consulting for $23,557 plus HST of $3,062.41 for a total bid. And there was just a small, I think we're just missing an N and a D there with regards to the report, but a total bid of $26,619.41. Moved by Deputy Mayor. Oh, sorry. There was a request for a recorded vote on this, so I just we're going to do a recorded vote if you're okay with that, but we'll take the mover and a seconder. Sorry, Councillor Edgerton asked me for a recorded vote about this earlier, so I failed to acknowledge that. So I'm just. Oh, it wasn't on this one. Oh, excuse me. So never mind. Excuse me. We have a mover in Deputy Mayor Huntley and a seconder in Councillor Natchez. All those in favor? That is approved. Sorry, Mr. Edgerton, I forgot about that. All right, we all make them. Moving on, 8.5, council committee verbal reports. Any verbal reports from members of council? Councilor Byrne.
Through the chair, just a few things. I'd like to congratulate the company that did the slurry seal project here in the township the last month. I think right now it looks like they did an excellent job. Time will be the test. I am disappointed with the huge mistake we made in Mount Pleasant with the selection of the curbing they picked. It kind of highlights the fact that some of the people involved with the the whole process don't seem to understand the rural community and the agricultural background of the area by picking street curbs instead of what they referred to as an open-faced or rolled over curb. We could have made full utilization of the shoulder they already plan on asphalting anyways. That's not going to be an option now. And then my big concern is they don't make the same mistake in some other rural community somewhere else. The other thing I'd like to mention is it's Crossing Guard Week. I don't know if we've hired a second crossing guard. I know it was talked about a long while ago, but the one we have in Millbrook might need a shout out or a thank you.
Ms. Hurley, I'd like to speak to the first item.
Just for clarification, I believe you're speaking regarding your concerns about Mount Pleasant as the county, not the township. I just wanted to clarify, it's not the township's works, it's the county of Peterborough works.
Very good. No.
Through the chair. So from what I understood, the last council, our mayor sat on the roads committee for county. So I would think that that was part of the discussion back when they were doing this layout work probably 3-4 years ago. I don't know when this process started.
No, that would not be the case. They're on the Transportation Master Plan Committee, which is not the minutia, what's being done where. It's like projects at large and what sort of context and sort of approach they'll be taken to those sorts of projects. So there's not a counselor on the public works staff that oversees different projects at this township or at the county, just for clarification. Other members of council with a committee update? I have a couple. No, okay, seeing none. The library committee met just actually the same day of the previous council meeting. They are working on, I believe they've almost finalized a number of questions with regards to a survey. They're hoping to take out to a number of different events over the course of the summer to engage and get a bit more feedback from the public as to changing some of their, whether it's levels of service or different programs for different age groups that they're not seeing enough presence of at the libraries to try to reach those individuals. And they're also experimenting with a bit of a sort of a restructure of some of the layout with regards to the Millbrook location, which I think might help address some of the IT concerns that we're working on as a project with the library board as well. So that was the summation of the library board meeting. And then just another update, both myself and Ms. Hurley had a meeting on, what was it, on Thursday, I believe, with the senior members of the KPR school board to further discuss sort of the elementary pressures with regards to the township and the lack of capacity that needs to be addressed and moving forward. And just talked about how we can sort of help with regards to certain advocacy with the constraints that they're facing that's kind of creating this unique pressure and unique, 130 to 160% capacity at the existing elementary schools, but also working together to ensure that the lands associated with the new potential school in Tower Hill North come online as soon as possible to address those issues as well. So it was a very good meeting. It was nice to meet some new faces at the senior school board level, and hopefully we can continue to work together, and I'll continue to keep council updated as those conversations progress. And then obviously there's with regards to the fair board coming up, received a few more emails of correspondence. We're hoping for better weather than's in the forecast with regards to the fair, but I hope all of council received some of that information. And if there's any questions with regards to the fair schedule and operations, just let me know and we can get that information to you. Councillor Natchoff.
Sorry, thank you, Chair, through you. Just on an update with the last meeting with the GRCA. There was discussions about the changes for proposed bill 185, which will affect the Planning Act, and the reduction of red tape to build more homes and how that would work in conjunction with watersheds and the regional conservation. So there was nothing definitive, just it was a preliminary introduction to the board, and questions have been forwarded. No answers were provided at that time until more information is made available. I'll keep you abreast as we have more meetings. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Councillor Natchoff. With that, we'll look for a mover and a second to receive those verbal reports for information. Councillor Byrne, Deputy Mayor Huntley, all in favor? That is approved. There is no general business. There is no correspondence for information. We do have one letter under correspondence for action, request to purchase the unopened road allowance. So how we would entertain this is that we would simply receive the letter and direct staff to come back to council with a report about the lands in question, and then they'll have a fulsome sort of summary of what's being requested to be considered for council at a later date. If there's no objections to that, I'd like to make that motion and then look for a seconder. Question with regards to the motion, Councillor Byrne?
I'm not sure through the chair whether the proper procedure, but since Mr. Thompson came today, if there was any questions that staff had to ask him, this would be an opportune time that maybe that could be done.
Yeah, I'm sure staff will review the contents of the letter, and that's sort of what we're giving them direction to do now, and then come back with a report. Looking for us, Councillor Byrne was a seconder for that. Okay, so I was the mover, Councillor Byrne is the seconder. All in favor? Any questions or any issues with that motion? If not, all in favor? That is approved. Thanks very much, everyone, for that exception. Moving on, we have the bylaw. So excuse me, the bylaw number 2024-33 being a bylaw to provide the administration and enforcement of the Building Code Act 1992 within the Township of Cappamonigan, and bylaw number 2024-34 being a bylaw to provide for the adoption of the levy and to provide for the adoption of tax rates and to further provide for penalty and interest in default of payments thereof for 2024, and bylaw number 2024-35 being a bylaw to provide the adoption of special services levy, and bylaw number 2024-36 being a bylaw to provide the levy and collection of special charges for the year 2024 in respect to the business improvement area be read a first, second, third time and passed this third day of June, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal attached thereto. Moved by Councillor Edgerton, seconded by Councillor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. There is no unfinished business. Any notices of motions? Seeing none, the confirming bylaw is bylaw number 2024-37 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the meeting held June 3rd, 2024 be read a first, second, third time and passed this third day of June, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal attached thereto. Mover and a seconder for the confirming bylaw, Councillor Byrne and Councillor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. Lastly, a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Huntley and Councillor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. We have a long list of upcoming events. I might call some of them because we do have a couple more, or at least one more council meeting before the summer break. The Millbrook 173rd Annual Fair will be taking place this week from June 6th to 9th. The parade also has a new route this year. The parade will start at 11:30 a.m., marshaling at the old Millbrook Arena, and then go north on Neithers Lane and then west on King Street, County Road 21 to Main Street, then south on Main Street to Frederick Street and east on Frederick Street, then into the fairgrounds. So that is the new route, just so everyone's aware. On the 13th of June, the Millbrook Downtown BIA Board of Management meeting will be held at 8 a.m. The Cavan Monaghan Public Library Board meeting is Tuesday, June 18th at 7 p.m. at the Millbrook branch. The Municipal Revitalization and Heritage Advisory Committee meeting is Thursday, June 20th, 2024. The next regular council meeting is Monday, June 24th at 1 p.m. The Millbrook Valley Trails Advisory Committee meeting is Monday, June 24th at 4 p.m. And then, of course, we have our Canada Day celebrations at the CMC C986 County Road 10 on Monday, July the 1st from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. We'll look forward to seeing everyone there. And then the subsequent regular council meeting after the June meeting is August 12th at 1 p.m. We also want to make due notice of movie night at the CMCC is scheduled tentatively at Thursday, August 15th, 2024 at 7 p.m. More information about that will be made available as we establish it. And then the subsequent regular council meeting is Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024 at 1 p.m.